Yo, we live? What's up, everybody? What's up, sucker? Hope you guys are doing great. Happy Sunday. Let me just make sure we did go live. Yeah, okay, cool. Hope you guys are doing great, man. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you had a cool week. I know the seasons are changing, so like life changes. Not only do you go out and get fucking pumpkin spice lattes and shit, but like life generally changes. Like, when the seasons change, it's like you got to get warm stuff. You got to prepare for it. Like your whole life. Like the summer here was so great, and summer generally is awesome. I was out, every other night, just like doing stuff, going on dates and exploring more of Pittsburgh, and it's just been really awesome. But like, when it's 30 degrees, you kind of don't want to do that. So, not looking forward to it, bros. Really not looking forward to it. Before we get some people in here, I just wanted to start off the chat by saying, hey, look, all of the consultations are discounted. Okay, for the entire month of October, every single consultation, including nootropic regimen formulation, TRT protocol optimization, energy optimization, blood work interpretation, sexual dysfunction and ED recovery, PSSD, my longer term programs where it's one-on-one on me, they're all with me. They're all discounted for the month of October. So you've been looking to book with me. October is certainly the month to do it. All right, hurry up, because since I've launched this to a partial email list, part of our email list, I've just been like mega booked. Okay, so there's going to be a point in the next couple of days probably where, at least for some of the bigger consultations, the one-on-one programs, where I won't have any slots open. So they're all discounted for the month of October. All right, so before we get some people in here to discuss whatever is on your guys' minds, I guess I'll kind of discuss, one of the primary topics that I'm going to be doing a lot of content on coming soon, which is the fact that if you have boner problems, if you have erectile issues, there is really no case in which I feel like you shouldn't do penile rehab. Now, we've talked about this before. I've sort of, touched on it and I haven't really gotten into significant detail about it. You guys have heard me mention things like the P shot, like shockwave therapy, like daily PDE5 inhibitor therapy, and using things like the Phoenix. You haven't really heard me talk about genital massages or penile massages all that much, but that is a significant sort of addition into the kind of ED recovery protocol. I've worked with a lot of men over the course of many years to fix dick problems. It's a common thing. I had them when I was 33 and it wasn't fun, and I had to get to the bottom of it. And that kind of got me interested in, what else is there? Like, it's like, what is the bulletproof way to recover erectile function, right? It's obviously hormones, right? But it's also the rehab that you actually have to do on the organ. And that is a topic that I'm going to be discussing a lot about in the coming, weeks or coming months, like just big, long pieces of content around how important it is, and getting into some of the strategy to do it. A lot of guys, when they've got erectile issues, think okay, maybe I'll take supplements. I think at the lowest level, folks I'll start taking like some Shilajit, or I'll start taking maybe some maca root or something, and that's generally never really effective. It's effective if things aren't that awry, where all you really need is a little bit of hormone balancing, which is what maca root would do, and then you're kind of back in. But otherwise, you got to approach erectile issues from every single facet, not only the hormones, but the blood vessel health in your junk, right? So we're going to be talking a lot about that moving forward. The second thing that I think is going to be at least a big, long breakdown video is this notion of a prolactin reset for sexual function, okay? Prolactin is a tricky hormone in that even if it is in range, it can be causing sexual dysfunction, right? Lack of good, strong erections, lack of libido. Prolactin actually messes with the libido parts of your brain, the desire parts of your brain. And so, prolactin is a tricky hormone. And those of you guys that are on testosterone, the estradiol, if it's not managed correctly, is prolactogenic. And even if it is somewhat managed, like you're just forcing a little more prolactin release. All guys on TRT are going to get a little more prolactin release and secretion than they were, before they went on TRT. Just by the sheer fact that estrogen is prolactogenic, and you're certainly going to be making more of it, and it's harder to control than compared to when you're natural. And prolactin resets, and then there's obviously cases like with guys with PSSD, that had long-term sexual dysfunction, other situations too, like from drugs that they've administered that they can't really figure out exactly what is happening. Hormones like look okay. In those cases, prolactin was high for a long period of time. And if you're exposed to it consistently, it does a whole host of negative things, from downregulating hypothalamic libido function, as well as, erections, right? For the longer term. And so this notion of a prolactin reset, I've been employing it with clients where nothing else really could get to the bottom of what's happening. We really couldn't get to the bottom of why, their sexual function wasn't great. And then a prolactin reset solved the issue. Prolactin reset is defined as taking the prolactin down to between 0 and 2 nanograms per milliliter. I mean, ultra low levels of prolactin, guys. Letting it sit there for pretty appreciable amount of time, and then slowly allowing it to rise, but not to where it was prior, and somewhere between 4 and 8 nanograms per milliliter. I'll let you soak that one up, okay? Because I've seen stubborn sexual dysfunction go away when you do a prolactin reset. So what does it tell us? It tells us that there's something else going on with prolactin even being in range. It tells us that potentially the person had been exposed to high prolactin at a previous point. And, all the ensuing damage, if you will, that high prolactin causes is essentially still present, even if prolactin is back in range. It's a really, really tricky hormone, guys. And again, prolactin reset will be the topic of, many videos to come, at least one full, breakdown, like a big fucking breakdown video on it. All right, guys, if you have any questions, line them up. Malhan is saying, hit the like button. Please hit the like button. Do what you will, share the stream, but importantly, ask questions. I want you guys to just ask as many questions as possible. Hope I'm catching people on like a good Sunday where folks are around, so we can just kind of start this thing off. Let's talk about anastrozole. Okay, so Mal has a question about anastrozole impacting lipid profiles. Anything to watch out for? Yeah, anastrozole itself is a harmless drug, but too low levels of estrogen impact the lipid profile for 75-80% of guys, right? Just an estimation. And so what you want to do first and foremost is keep the estradiol between 25 and 30. If you're concerned about that, just keep it between 25 and 35 at the highest. Some guys have sexual dysfunction at 35 plus. Some guys are fine at 40. You're going to have to experiment with that and sort of see how you function and feel, in terms of libido in the sexual department when the estradiol is at 35 or whatever. But generally speaking, if you can keep the estradiol between 25 and 35, it really won't have a negative impact on your lipids. I have lipids from like 2.5 months ago or so. I've actually put them on the channel and they're fucking stellar. Like my lipids haven't changed because it's low estrogen is not, people think about this very singularly. Oh, anastrozole or even DHT derivatives or anabolic steroids mess with your lipid profile. Well, they can, but that's not the only thing that contributes to lipid profile. So does your diet, so does your water intake, so does your sleep. Host of things contribute to your lipids. So does the, effectively the supplements you're taking or not taking. I mean, there's certain supplements you can take that keep lipids in a better place. There's all kinds of things you can do, not the least of which is cardio and lifting weights. So, anastrozole in and of itself is harmless, but again, taking the estradiol too low is where you run into some of these lipid issues, assuming that like other shit is fucked up in your diet, man. Good question though. Zach is saying, hold on, let me move that up. Zach is saying, hey, I was wondering if you can explain how the email consultations and how it works and will be faster than the other consultations. I'm planning on hopping on the consultations. Email consultations are a way to, I think it's multifold, get people a cheaper option, right? Folks that don't want to do a call, or number two, like don't really have the time to jump on a call, but rather just type out an email of like their situation broken down succinctly with like paragraph separation, considering time restraints and, attaching appropriate or applicable lab values so that I can then look at your whole picture, think about it for a period, and then craft a protocol to get people resolution or at least down the right path of how they need to like fix problems. So that is essentially the utility of email consultations. They're cheaper. They're somewhat easier. There's certain things we can't get done in email consultations, right? It'll depend on your situation. Like, if somebody's got a large scale sexual dysfunction from, the Zoloft or, God forbid, the sertraline that they took for many years. And that's going to require, if the person really wants to get better, ongoing work. However, I can still give you recommendations in that case too. So that's essentially it. I mean, the calls are a way for me to fact find further. The importance of consultations with me, the major utility or one of the most important parts is the fact-finding part, because I will just drill you with questions that otherwise maybe you wouldn't think about, that my brain, considering studying physiology for 16 years and all these kind of nuanced elements of it, thinks to ask to get to the bottom of what's happening where, you might not have put that together or something. So that's where the calls are useful. Either way, they're both effective at getting people results. It all just depends on what your budget is and how deep of a dive you want me to go on, for certain things. Jeff is saying, morning, do anything fun this weekend? Where can I buy racetams online? That is, so your primary question is where can you buy racetams? So I've discussed the fact that, number one, we don't really talk about sources here before, but I've also discussed effectively where I've gotten sources from. So of racetams, so you may want to look at a video that was posted, I want to say maybe a year ago, something to the effect of, what to do around the racetam shortage, and that is on this channel. As far as fun this weekend, I saw, what did I see? Exorcist Believer last night, and it was fucking rad. Actually, it was long, but it was good. It was a little liberal for me. I mean, there was like some obvious sort of negative light cast toward white folks, and there was like, what else was there? There was definitely like Hollywood fucking extremely crazy left wing people. There was a few things in it, but otherwise it was a great movie. Exorcist Believer. I saw it yesterday, and then I don't know what I did Friday night. I forget. Actually, no, the PC beta for Modern Warfare 3 is out, so I've been playing that. I literally just got a new rig. I can't show it to you, but it is gigantic and awesome, and it's got an RTX 4090. It's like the best graphics card money can buy right now. And I've been playing Modern Warfare 3. I like the game. The movement is so much better. I mean, it's just like way a step up from Modern Warfare 2, which was a step back. I can't believe they even made that abomination of a game. So that's what I've been doing. Today's Sunday. Don't really know what the plans for the rest of the day is. Probably finish off the rest of the beta on PC on Modern Warfare and make some content. I'm going to go back to my game. I have a gaming channel where I'm going to start posting again. So that's probably what we're looking at. SB0003, 3 zeros and then a 3, is saying, took L-theanine in the evening first time, took cabergoline this morning, had low blood pressure and faint. Never had a problem with cabergoline before. Yeah, I mean, maybe the theanine is, triggering some degree of hypotension in addition to having cabergoline. Also, I don't know how much you've dosed cabergoline in the past, but that stuff, it's a weird drug. It's when you first start a certain dose, you will have side effects, and then your body will adjust and you'll get used to those side effects. It's very interesting. In most drugs, the side effects just stay persistent. Cabergoline, they actually get better over time if you stay at the same dose. But then if you move the dose up again, you'll get an additional 3 to 5 days of side effects, after which your body will get used to it, and then you'll sort of go back down to being homeostasis again. So I don't know if you have changed the dose of cabergoline. If you're going to ask a question like this, you absolutely want to include the dose when we're talking about a chemical like cabergoline. Otherwise, generally looking at that question, you may have taken too much. So 25 milligrams cabergoline. No, that's not correct. You were dosing 0.25 milligrams cabergoline. And 1,000 milligrams theanine. If you don't have a pituitary tumor, which secretes prolactin, which is a very hard to control hyperprolactogenic state, then you're probably only going to need 0.125 milligrams of cabergoline, which would be half of a 0.25 milligram tablet. And, I would run that once every 4 days. Guarantee you'd lower your prolactin that way, and you probably wouldn't run into some of those hypotensive moments. But certainly cabergoline in and of itself can make you hypotensive as one of the side effects, but you'll get used to that over time if you stay on the same dose. Subpar username with a actually epic username goes, what opinion of the nofap or semen retention movement? You're going to get me started on this. And if there's evidence affecting testosterone, dopamine, prolactin, or is it just good for productivity? What I think, from a scientific perspective about this, having approached, sexual dysfunction from a rigorously logical perspective over the course of many years and seeing a lot of real men in real situations, is that largely useless. Okay, largely useless. I think to a degree, if over the course of a 5-day period you do not masturbate or ejaculate, there are benefits, right? There's the benefit of not causing a prolactin release, which, inhibits hypothalamic dopamine and inhibits testosterone, pulsatile testosterone secretion for a brief period as that prolactin bumps up post-ejaculation, okay? I would also assert that a lot of the benefit that some of these people have is probably a lowering in serum prolactin because there is not a consistent rise. So their hormones are probably in an unstable place where frequent masturbation and or ejaculation is causing prolactin release, and that's inhibiting testosterone, and that just keeps on this sort of negative vicious cycle. So these guys that, are on NoFap, etc., and, like swear by not watching porn ever, these guys are in jeopardized places from their previously excessive masturbation, porn, etc. And ultimately it's like, well, what is that? People say, oh, that's just the problem. Well, what downstream is the issue? It's the prolactin release. It's somewhat dopamine desensitization, but that's not even really in the scientific literature and not, can't really be at least conclusively induced by porn. That's why I did that video on no, porn doesn't really cause erectile dysfunction. A healthy sexually functioning man should be able to watch porn. Not all the time, because who would want to do that? But, yes, a healthy sexually functioning man can, like, I could watch porn, and like, whatever, like I've done it like with girls and fine, nothing different, nothing weird happen. So yeah, I think largely useless. I think, again, guys that get benefit from it are in a place where they've been secreting entirely too much prolactin, or the fact that they're not secreting excess levels of prolactin because they're going on this somewhat fast of ejaculation is helping balance out and keep pulsatile LH and FSH, which comes from the pituitary, which is inhibited by that prolactin post-ejaculation, firing correctly. Yeah, any hardcore sexual dysfunction that a man has, you're not going to resolve by fucking going NoFap. It's just, I've never seen it done. And people that say that they've done it, I would question their motives. It's kind of a cultish, online, community of people that want that to be the answer, and it just isn't. Malan is saying, what's the difference between an anastrozole and a aromasin? Preference and why? Preference would be an anastrozole because of the, shorter half-life, and for me, it's just easier to dial in. Because if you make a mistake on your anastrozole dose within 2-3 days, and especially if you just like raise your testosterone dose for 2 days or something, you're basically back to normal. You'll get the estradiol back up. Whereas, if you take a aromasin and make a mistake, meaning you've taken too much of it, too high of a dose for what you needed, you didn't quite calculate or understand, because it's actually difficult to understand how much it's going to lower serum estradiol. Aromasin is a suicide inhibitor, so it basically binds right to the aromatase enzymes and kind of gets stuck and sort of messes with affinity and binding, and then they die and get, essentially shuttled out of your body. So then you got to produce more aromatase enzymes thereafter, after that happens. I think one of my lights just kicked. Hold on one sec, guys. And that's just, that is where if you crash the estradiol from taking too much aromasin, then you got to wait 7 days more. Like, I've heard some pretty wacky stories, and I've certainly seen it happen. I like anastrozole for TRT, honestly, because first of all, I know how to dose it for me. Secondly, I can get 0.125 compounded tablets, which I can split in half sometimes. Thirdly, again, it's just, 48 to 60 or so hour half-life. So when it's half-lifing out of the system and estradiol is coming back, you can literally feel it. If you've got labs to back that up, because you ran the labs 72 hours or 48 hours post-dosing anastrozole, you know how your body responds to it. And that's essentially kind of where I'm at. Now, look, that isn't to say that people don't have great experiences on aromasin, because they do. If you can get the dose dialed in for you and you understand the frequency and you're running labs to see where estradiol goes in what time frame, then, aromasin, it's somewhat of a natural, steroidal aromatase inhibitor that your body understands and recognizes far more than what is ultimately foreign anastrozole. So that would be my take on that. Zach is saying, is there a line for a wait response back through email consultations? But if it's one-on-one, will it be faster response? If you're doing a one-on-one program, absolutely faster response, because those are significantly more, they cost more, right? And they get my attention right away. This is a one-on-one situation. Usually somebody's in a somewhat of a dire situation and or just wants to get started. And yeah, that's just life. You pay for higher consultations, you get absolute priority. Email consultations within 48 hours, an email gets dispatched out to your email requesting information from you about your situation so that we can actually start. Matt C is saying, do you feel that DIM has a place in the regimen of most men? I do not. I do not feel like diindolylmethane has a place in most men's regimens. I don't see a need for it. It doesn't lower estradiol. It's not an AI. It'll help convert some of your active estradiol into the other estrogens, but then, are you metabolizing them out? How is your diet? What is conversion like? Because if you're drinking a lot of booze, then that's going to be useless too. Whereas an AI wouldn't be useless in that case. It's going to be still overpower the testosterone's conversion to estradiol, induced by alcohol consumption. Diindolylmethane is also an androgen receptor antagonist. It is certainly an androgen receptor antagonist in prostate tissue to a pretty large extent. That's why it's used for prostate issues, but where else is it an androgen receptor antagonist? All I've seen with DIM in men on TRT, the ones that I've seen, I'm sure there are other stories out there, is somewhat sexual dysfunction from using it and not a lowering of serum estradiol. It's an internet myth that you can use diindolylmethane to lower estrogen. You can't. I forget what selegiline does. Monoamine oxidase B inhibitor. I forget. You'll have to refresh me on what exactly the mechanism of action is. Thomas Oliver is saying, suffer with morning anxiety badly. Feels like a cortisol dump on my brain. Any ideas what I can try that isn't an SSRI? What you should do to be definitive about this, Thomas, is you should run labs for cortisol in the morning when this is happening. Yeah, you should get an 8 a.m. cortisol. That's essentially when it's peaking, right? And that's what most endocrinologists are going to suggest. 8 a.m., run cortisol labs, salivary or otherwise. I'm not sure how they take it wherever you go, and see where they are. Because you need to confirm or deny that it's cortisol or not cortisol. Because if it isn't cortisol, then you have an additional issue. Like maybe you're overfiring adrenaline in the morning. It's entirely possible. Maybe there's something in your regimen that you're discounting that is causing this to happen in the morning. Maybe you, I don't know, are dealing with long COVID and you don't know it. And maybe you are dealing with having taken one of the products, God forbid, and not knowing it. Because the side effect list is fucking significant. I get clients all the time on that. So I don't know what your issue is, but the first thing you should do is stop guessing and go get blood, for sure. You need to see what's going on. Any situation, guys, I have had so many people come to me, especially on the erectile dysfunction side. They've had it for 2-3 years. They're not sexually active and they don't know why. And they think it was porn or something. I've never looked at labs. The labs will tell you where things are. I don't know where we got into this weird place on Reddit or wherever, where people are like, oh, don't really mind the labs. It's like how you feel, whatever. Now the labs, should tell you not everything, but they're going to tell you a good degree of stuff. Social Sigma, favorite podcast stack? That's a hard one. Verbal fluency is obviously very important for podcasts. I used to do long form audio podcasts for this channel, but it's just the work of this business and the content, etc., became overwhelming, especially consulting. So I don't do those anymore. But the old Cortex stack was powerful for verbal fluency. The new Cortex stack is epically powerful or equally powerful, but the old Cortex stack had uridine in it. And that is like a super nootropic for verbal fluency. So probably that, otherwise any stimulant with a balancer. So like a stimulating, energizing chemical with, in addition to that, something that's working on GABA or serotonin or lowering cortisol also makes me verbally fluent. So keep that in mind. You could dose like aniracetam, ashwagandha and get verbal fluency. You could dose dynamine and picamilin and get verbal fluency. So speed the brain up, but bring in a little bit of sort of flow and slowed down concentration, and then you have verbal fluency. Matt C is saying, any issue with frequently using Mucuna as a prophylactic against excess prolactin? Definitely notice I can go way longer on days when I've taken a little Mucuna. Certainly, yeah, I don't see a problem with Mucuna purines at all. And yeah, the literature, I mean, look, giving yourself more dopamine is the frontline defense against prolactin secretion. So this is why this is happening. But there is specific scientific literature on Mucuna purines itself, being able to lower prolactin. Interestingly, the prolactin, if you look at it, if you look at the science on this, the prolactin will bounce back to where it was. So just keep that in mind. It's like a temporary suppression out of the serum of prolactin into the periphery, and then it ultimately ends up coming back. But, I don't see a problem with Mucuna at all. There's some fear-mongering YouTubers that are very clickbaity in their content and their thumbnails and stuff that will say Mucuna is an issue. They're conflating it with pharmaceutical L-Dopa, and they just don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And that kind of stuff bothers me. Social Sigma said, just got torque. You will love that stack. I mean, if you're 94% of people, which you probably are, that stack's going to kick your butt and you're going to like it. Don't know what, some chemical for prolactin, Depakote, you'll have to explain what it does, Manuel, if you can, because I just don't know what the mechanism of action is. Zach is saying, I have a question about anhedonia. Does anhedonia have to do with just dopamine, or is there other neurotransmitters like serotonin? I had noticed after taking Adderall, my anxiety has something or other. And maybe you're going to continue that, returned even worse. Yeah, well, the anxiety returns worse from effectively a rebound after taking Adderall. That's the post-Adderall state. That's just one of the problems with Adderall. Anhedonia is characterized by, an imbalance, first and foremost in neurotransmitters, specifically dopamine and serotonin, but particularly a lack of proper functioning of both. I'll get anhedonic if I'm not eating enough, raw precursor to serotonin. I'll get mildly anhedonic. Yes, so this happens to me. That's my cue that I need to boost both serotonin and dopamine. It's sometimes one of the others, or usually both. Like, I did that video about serotonin. It's like 3 or 4 videos ago about how important it is. Like, when I get to that place where I actually feel mildly anhedonic or somewhat medium like anhedonic, because I felt full-blown anhedonia before. I've induced that, via a drug experiment gone wrong, and it was not fucking fun. So I understand what that feels like. But, 2-3 days, maybe even less of probiotics, typically in yogurt, and that I've replenished via giving the gut bacteria that actually help produce serotonin, my brain levels of serotonin, then I'm back. So it's both. There'll be times where, serotonin is fine because all the precursors are in the diet, but dopamine may have taken a hit for one reason or another, in which case Mucuna purines would solve an issue like that, right? Or just getting dopamine firing correctly. So I think it's both. But interestingly, that's not the whole picture. Hormones, like sex hormones specifically, play a large role in this too, because they regulate both of those neurotransmitter systems, right? And they target specifically serotonin and dopamine in a sensitization of the receptors and a synthesis and a release capacity for dopamine. So, resolution anhedonia is complex, but you definitely need to have your testosterone and estradiol in the right place. And then also work on dopamine and serotonin. ACOS is saying, why doesn't TRT need to be cycled? Well, I mean, it's not that it doesn't need to be. It's just that the typical operative way of dealing with testosterone from the clinic's point of view is, to have guys on every 2 or 3 month repeat purchase of, their testosterone vials. So is that 100% like ideal? Largely, yes. Guys, have a perfect, a fine time on testosterone. But, there are cases with like tricky sexual dysfunction on TRT because the estradiol level is very fickle for sex drive and for erections. It's just got to be in a tight range. And so, there are guys that instead of taking an astrazole because it really bothers them and they haven't been able to get their hands on the compounded tablets, which anyone can take if you're doing the strategy the right way and you won't get side effects. These guys do better just cycling off for 3 days or something, not a significant amount of time, because then your testosterone levels are going to drop very significantly. You're going to start feeling very terrible. But, a 2 to 3 day cycle off of testosterone sometimes is useful enough to lower both prolactin and estradiol, and get guys out of like libido slumps where their libido kind of took a hit, or like erection quality, got bad or something. Pat Wolfman is saying, anything you know of to lessen the half-life of modafinil? Lessen the half-life? No. I do not know of anything that's going to lessen the half-life of modafinil. Nope. I mean, you could try to look into optimizing phase 2 liver detox, but, I'm not even sure that would help. Social Sigma said, purchased a modafinil knockoff from India a while back. Really bad headaches. It may have just been regular modafinil. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Or it could have been, just a different preparation of it, Mode Alert, generic, whatever. But more than likely, I don't know what website you got it from, but there are very few scam modafinil sites. They're all legitimately modafinil. But that drug, if the dose isn't right for you, and if there's other stuff going on, if it's interacting with something in your regimen, like your antihistamine or something, who knows? Or your reflux drug, it can give you headaches. Also, modafinil raises levels of histamine, so if you're not used to that, you can get head pressure and headaches and stuff like that. That drug is not side effect free, no question. But if you get the dose right and you figure out how to be able to dose it and feel good, it's fucking phenomenal. I haven't taken modafinil in like a month, actually. That reminds me. Maybe this week I'll bang out a 12-hour workday. Get some modafinil in. Matt C., appreciate the feedback. It could be purely anecdotal, but I'd say your ability to quickly give thorough responses if you're reading from a study is proof that your style of biohacking. Yes, absolutely. That's all I do. Besides gaming and dating and going to the gym, when I'm not doing any of that stuff, I am reading scientific literature. I read it in my bed at night at 12 a.m. You know what I mean? And for the past 16 years, when my peers were at the bar doing whatever, that's kind of what I was doing, working on my business and reading scientific literature. I've consumed so much, so there's just so much that I know about a lot. My endocrinologist and or any doctor that I go to, they go, what's your background? And I go, self-taught, man. And they're like, they take a minute. Huh. Thanks, bro. Thomas Oliver, thanks on cortisol advice. Doctors have run tons of blood and nothing to query. Interesting. So if cortisol is, and if 8 a.m. cortisol is not peaking, then you have likely a noradrenaline issue. Like it's excessive, possibly excessive levels of glutamate. I mean, I'd look into taking Picamilin if I were you and see if that does it. Then it'll tell you it's a GABA issue. Otherwise, not really a way to lower noradrenaline other than to try to watch out for, just try to reduce dietary levels of tyrosine. So look at foods that have tyrosine and try to reduce your intake of those and see if you'll ultimately make a little less noradrenaline. And then you could also just try again boosting some of the inhibitory neurotransmitters like serotonin and GABA. If you started eating, some Noosa yogurt, that's got very epic probiotics in it that will make you make more of those neurotransmitters, and that might help too. It's like, what is your diet? What are you not doing? And what else is going on in your life? Not just lifestyle or like life-wise, like shit-wise, like problem. We all have problems. If your brain is good, you're equipped to deal with them. But what in your regimen? Are you drinking? Do you smoke pot? All that stuff contributes. Stefan, what's the lowest paracetam dose that has worked for you? 800 milligrams. Maybe 400? I may have tried, but I don't remember. 800, I know for sure, has worked effectively for me. Luke John Russell, epic name, bro. You should be an actor. I hope you're an actor. I love your channel. I'm following your information on estrogen control. Has improved my TRT experience tremendously. Love that, bro. Again, don't go too low. You got to be careful with estrogen control and careful with these drugs that lower it. But, I just don't know what to say to people that say let the estradiol go. I mean, there are popular YouTubers like Ryan Russo who's got massive sexual dysfunction. He thinks from lion's mane, but there's a lot of other stuff that guy's had in his regimen that estradiol is above 100, and he thinks that has nothing to do with it. 100% that has something to do with it. 150 fucking percent. You're not going to function sexually well with estradiol being, past a certain range for you. It's different for different guys, but there are threads on Reddit. I mean, these threads are crazy, where it's like 190 comments, and it's this dude going, managing estradiol and TRT changed my fucking life. I was listening to the anti-AI guys forever, that never manage estradiol, or that you can lower your dose and somehow that's going to put you at the magic estrogen number, which isn't always true. It is true for some people, thankfully, not everybody. And then you got like the whole comment section, like, dude, same experience. Dude, same experience. I listened to all these anti-AI guys. My testosterone experience was fucking terrible. I felt generally crappy, anxious, bloated. My nipples hurt, but largely no morning erections, no nocturnal erections, no libido, or less than optimal. Started managing the estradiol and everything comes back. Careful though, you drop the estradiol below 20 or whatever for you, all that stuff goes away again. My range is 20 to 30. I mean, I can get away with 35, 40. It's not completely optimal, but it works. 20 to 30, and I am like pristine. I couldn't imagine myself, because I've been at 51 before just to see how I felt. I couldn't imagine that felt bad. I couldn't imagine any higher than that. Like, I know I'm very in tune with how I feel, and I think I just wouldn't feel right. So I'm glad you've got benefit. Just be careful. Don't take it too low. When you feel good on your estradiol, like when you're managing estrogen and you feel really good, everything's good, get a snapshot of the labs so that you can see exactly what estradiol works well for you. That is fucking hugely important. Bjarn is saying, hey, what is your experience with cerebral lysin? I feel like it has healed my brain of medium anhedonia. That's interesting. I feel more motivated to have a higher vagal tone. Not much experience with it. I think there are other chemicals that I've used that are more effective at the process of neurogenesis. So I don't know why it gets I don't know why it gets this much attention, but I mean, there's much more powerful stuff than cerebral lysin out there. I think there are people that are non-specialized in nootropics that have propped it up, and good for them. But yeah, it's just not something on my radar that I'm very interested in trying. I had some coming in, I don't know, 3-4 months ago, then custom seized it. Like, what? Okay. Thomas Oliver, I never had anxiety, and then one day I woke up and it was just there. Doctors want to prescribe SSRI. Don't do that. Yeah, maybe you have long COVID, dude, because that's one of the or you got one of the products from pharma. So you got to be careful, because both will trigger autonomic dysfunction, which will absolutely cause you anxiety that you have no idea where it's coming from. Justin is saying, is there a nootropic recommended for staying asleep? Then I wake up randomly in the middle of the night. No, I mean, look, there are things you can do, but there's a reason that's happening, Justin, and you got to figure that out. I mean, do you drink and then, you're in somewhat of a GABA withdrawal at 3 a.m.? Because that'll happen. All drinkers wake up in the middle of the night and they're, with the exception of a few, whatever, and they've got some sort of anxiety, or it happens, intermittently or something. I've lived with alcoholics and, a previous partner and studied it to various extents, and, there's issues there. So don't know. Otherwise, it's like wacky diets can cause this. If you do not consume adequate carbohydrates for your energy expenditure and you think you can just go keto, which most people cannot without refeeds, then, and even then, so if you have refeeds, like still some people's bodies aren't equipped for that. You're going to be making a lot of noradrenaline. It's a phase called the catecholamine honeymoon, and you're also going to be probably raising cortisol. The process of gluconeogenesis, converting your amino acids and fatty acids into glucose, is actually very taxing and can make you anxious. Other medication, is an antihistamine messing with you, because they can cause, nighttime anxiety. So I'd get to the bottom of what's happening. Where's your testosterone? If it's too low, that can cause this to happen. I get to the bottom of what's happening by granularly looking at everything. But in the meantime, 500 to 1,000 milligrams ashwagandha is very useful for this. 100 to 300 milligrams picamilin is useful for this. High dose theanine is useful for this. I'm talking about 500 to 1,000 milligrams. Zach is saying, I know you can't discuss resources, but is there any way you'd lead me to the right direction so I can get my hands on HCG-UGL? I'm in a tight budget of money, and yeah, so it depends on the company. There's a company called Amino Asylum that should have good quality HCG. Yeah, HCG is not really a controversial drug, so if YouTube has a problem with that, that's wacky. Yeah, professional nootropics advisor could be a thing. But if we do consultations, I'll get you squared away, man. Joe Nardi is saying to Thomas, check thyroid. Yeah, could be. Yeah, absolutely. We didn't even discuss that. If you're hyper pumping out, excess thyroid hormones, you are not going to feel good at all. I consulted a woman, one of the only, one of like 10 women that I've consulted who Yeah, had to be put on benzos because she had thyroid taken out and then put on synthetic thyroid hormones, and they were far too excess. And then she was, a walking fucking mass of absolute anxiety. ACOS, have you ever considered quitting alcohol for good? There have been, given that there are literally zero benefits. Well, it's questionable. To a very, very casual drinker, there are mild hormesis benefits, where it's like you're inducing somewhat of a mild stressor, and then your body is somewhat countering that by becoming stronger at a physiological level. That looks a little more complex than that general statement, but suffice to say I've studied it. I haven't drank alcohol in a year or something. I just, along the lines of what you're saying, I don't get benefits from alcohol. I get less than optimal cognitive function the next day, even if it's 2 drinks. Then you get fucking loose lips. It's like, it's like, I've always focused on, at least in the last couple of years, why can't I just, get myself to be myself and to say what's really on my mind without alcohol? I love it. Like on dates with girls, I'll ask them about sex and what they like, whereas, people would previously need alcohol about that. And, it works out. I think at the same time, you got to have, it's like using other things that make brain function better, in ways that are more sustainable. Coffee, like have a Coke, fine. Better than booze, frankly. When you're out, have you're getting 50 milligrams of caffeine or whatever in some Coke. And I think that's awesome. Yeah. I just really can't see booze being great. It's never been great for me in any way. My dad was an alcoholic, died from it. Mom has an issue with booze, other family members, ex-girlfriend. It's very unattractive to me, booze. What I respect, though, is like when I go on dates, I respect a girl that can have a drink or even 2 and handle it and be like, I'm done. I fucking respect that. That's what you want to do. Manuel, trying to get my wife pregnant. Any tips for increasing semen volume? Yeah, go on injectable HCG and she'll be pregnant soon. Honestly. I mean, certainly large degree of semen volume increase. I mean, you're directly stimulating the Sertoli cells by injecting HCG, and you will be significantly more fertile too. So, in line with getting her pregnant, that should certainly help. Matt C is saying, built a giant sauna in a garage during early COVID. Fucking epic, bro. 35 to 40 minutes, 5 times a week, 180 degrees. Makes me feel great. Any watch outs? If you're hydrated before you go in and you replenish minerals, sodium specifically accordingly, I don't think it's a particular issue. Also, like if you don't have significant health issues or health issues that cause you to be hypotensive sometimes, then I think you're fine. ACOS, if you want to date, which drinks do you just not drink? What if she's a heavy drinker? If a girl you go on a date with drinks, do you just not drink? Yes. Yep. If a girl that I go on a date with drinks, I don't drink. Yeah. I mean, every one of my dates, with the exception of a few girls that I don't, drink. They'll drink a glass of something or 2 or whatever, and that's essentially it. Girls that have drank excessively or too fast, that's a huge red flag for me. So I'm usually out ASAP. I won't see them again, or if somewhat of a relationship developed, I'll be out of it quickly because I've been there, done that, and it's life ruining. Being with a woman who drinks too much, they're just fucking fucked up in every way. But, so if she's a heavy drinker, yeah, I'm out. I learned my lesson. I'm completely out. If I see the red flags early, I'm out. I just can't deal with it. My brain cannot deal with, being around people that have addictions at any major capacity. I've dealt with it my whole life with family and whatever and otherwise. And, you reach a threshold where it's just not something I want in my life. So, most girls that I go on dates with will have a drink or 2. Yeah. And then there's some that are perfectly fine having coffee. It's like totally cool. Which I even like some of it better maybe. I'm like, oh great, let's both have fucking coffee. This is great. So that's essentially that. That is that, my friends. Talk about dating. Yeah, man. I started pretty aggressively dating in the last, I don't know, 7-8 months. It's a ride, man. It really is. If you want to sow your wild oats, man, you really can successfully on Tinder, Bumble, or both. And if you have the right strategy as a man, strategy. It sounds so cookie cutter. I'm not trying to make it feel that way, because these girls are people and they're awesome. But like, if you just want to go explore many different women and see what that's like, if you get it down and you actually know how to talk to women, which is very directly, by the way, you'll have a good time. Most women, despite what people think, most girls will sleep with you on the first date, for fucking sure. For sure. It's just that guys these days are conditioned to think that won't happen, so they don't give off those vibes at all. And if you're not giving those vibes off, you're not, excuse my French, but you're not getting any pussy, bro. Like, she will not come home with you if you're not giving those vibes. But if you are, she'll recognize, wow, I'm in the presence of a competent, confident man who knows what he's doing, and why not? That's usually where they are if they're not like strictly looking for a long-term relationship, and even some of those girls will still sleep with you on the first date, right? It's just about, they have to trust you. They have to feel comfortable. They have to know that you're not an axe murderer, or a weirdo in any capacity. It's like, you can't give off any of those hermit vibes that you've not been around a woman before. You have to know what to do with them. Rub their leg, like, just be completely confident in being a male, and they will 8 times out of 10 be cool with that. I've been on dates where women, I would initiate touch, and they were either uncomfortable because not many men do that on the first date, which I find bizarre. What better way to figure chemistry out other than physical touch? Or they just had some ideological weird thing like, this is toxic masculinity, or they were a liberal or something, you know what I mean? Otherwise, most girls are completely open to that. But if she drinks too much, I'm out, man. I'm out. If she drinks too fast, I'm out. Any other questions, guys? I'm sure, did I miss anything? I don't think I did. All right, I'm going to end the stream. Epic questions. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. I hope you have a killer week. I've got some pretty cool content lined up, not the least of which is my top 5 general biohacks. Okay, so I got like really epically specialized, but like, fucking cool biohacks, 5 of them that I'm going to discuss in an upcoming video. I've just got to finish the editing on it. It's going to be awesome. So that's going to launch like either tomorrow, Tuesday, or Wednesday. So look forward to that. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, all consultations, guys. As I said, consultations are discounted, every single one of them. So that's TRT protocol optimization, nootropic regimen formulation. I'm just trying to get my chat back up. How did I lose my chat? That's weird. Huh. Weird. Oh, you know what? That's why. Bing. Yeah. So every single thing is discounted. Even the email consultations, I dropped down a little bit. So if you scroll down on the consultations page, you'll see all of the consultations that you can just book and all of the prices. All of the prices have gone down. That's only for the month of October, guys. All right. So they're going to go back up to all their regular prices in November and maybe earlier. All right. So book, because I'm getting booked, like I'm just swamped. So, the larger scale consultations, they're also discounted too. So if you want to get on board with me for some of those, there's very few times in the year because of the demand that I discount them. Like the big 3-month or 6-month consultations, they're discounted too. So check them out, livecortex.com. Hope you guys have a great week. Thank you for being here. Your questions were epic, and I'll talk to you guys early this week. Later.